this is what is really useful about this technique, because it's something easy to say and remind yourself of. And it is a way of kind of rising above something that's hard. Welcome to the O for Food's Sake podcast, where we unwrap the joys and struggles of working in the food industry so you can thrive in what you do best while sustaining a rewarding and fulfilling career or business. We are your hosts, Lucy Wager, food industry consultant,
and Amy Wilkinson, food industry coach. We've worked in the food industry for the last 20 years, and we're here to share with you the benefit of our hindsight. Our podcast is for you to find new ways to cope with the daily struggles, but mostly to inspire you to work on what's not working to ultimately improve your career or business long term. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of O for Food's Sake. Today we are talking about the movement that is, I don't know if everybody feels this, I don't know if it's just because I live in the coaching world, but I'm hearing lots of people talking about the Mel Robbins let them theory.
I do think it's because you're in the coaching community, to be fair, but I am fully on board.
I do know a lot of people, I don't know if it's like women of a certain age, that are listening to the Mel Robbins podcast a lot.
No, definitely.
Like it's if you haven't listened to it, it's an amazing podcast. So, and we're not going to talk about Mel loads today and stuff, but she's got an amazing backstory. And she, is going from strength to strength, but she effectively is very motivational in what she does. And she was the one that did the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 thing where, like, if you don't want to do something, you do that and you get it done and all of that sort of thing. But what is great about the let them theory is that it's about like managing difficult people, really, which is what we spend a lot of our time talking about on this podcast. So I think it's a really great way of thinking about how we get over some of those conversations that we have to have. So it changes your approach to relationships, your approach to work. It can change your approach to life. And basically, it's about letting go of that need to control other people and their actions. So instead, it encourages to shift towards focusing inwards on what we can control ourselves. We have this conversation all the time, don't we? Like, you can only control how you react. You can't control the other people. But I think we say that, but then we also have lots of conversations about, like how we can manipulate other people.
It's one of those, it's easier said than done. It really is. Like, this is not, and that's why this is so effective, I think, because it's a quick reminder to self.
Well, and it's a phrase that you can remember in your head when you feel yourself getting wound up by something or somebody.
And it's quite empowering. I think it's like, we were joking before, let them. It's like, it's quite fun and empowering.
Now, what I would say, her book came out at Christmas or January time, and I binged it in a couple of days on audiobook. And also she reads the audiobook, and because she's a podcaster, she's really good at like how she reads it and stuff. So definitely would recommend listening to it on audio. But really the overarching idea is very simple. It's like, actually people do what they want to do. So that's okay. Just let them. And instead of trying to fix it, change it, convince them, all of that, we just have that pause and we go, let them. We just let it go. Now, I would add as a caveat here, this does not apply to children. This applies to other adults. We're not sitting here going, well, they're going to eat 600 sweets today. Let them, actually children need guide rails. But
hilarious.
Adults,
that hadn't even occurred to me.
You can imagine it. Oh, just let them walk across the road, do whatever.
I mean, I'm just taking this to the absolute nth degree. I'm saving all my energy, whatever.
You just do whatever you want. But I think it's also really important to say that there are two bits to it. So there's let them and there's let me, because this isn't about just giving up or being passive, but it's about that freedom from like getting so frustrated by everybody around you, getting really resentful about them, and all the stress that comes from the stories we tell ourselves in our heads, and where we're trying to like manipulate and micromanage the people around us. It takes up so much energy. So it's actually about letting go of that, because I don't know about you, but like other people's mood and, when they're stressed and stuff like that, when, a supplier lets us down, it can be really easy to let it consume us. I was running a workshop the other day and we were talking about it can often be, it's not big things that lead to you then like having a difficult relationship with them. It's like all the little things and you let them build up and you let the resentment build up and you're like, oh, well, they're just doing another thing and another thing. And then it ends up with you like having this real resentment towards that person, which makes your work life difficult. But actually, if you were able to just let those things go. So if you've got somebody in the team that doesn't say what they're going to do on time, let them, like, don't spend all your time micromanaging and trying to get them to do it. Sometimes they've got to live with those consequences if they're not doing the job that they should be doing. You know, it's like this whole not papering over the cracks thing. And I think at work, well, not just at work, I think it's that whole focusing on what you can control.
And acknowledging, like realising what you can control, sorry. Because I think I have a big problem with that where I'm just like in my personal life and probably more in my personal life, I feel like I have a very strong sense of justice. So if I feel like someone's doing something that isn't right, it's like a mission. Like I have to kind of really go, but this is really useful for breaking that because it's not helpful. You look like banging your head against a brick wall.
Yeah, it's not helpful. It's draining for you, but sometimes it's also not helpful to the other person. And I think like when I look back and look out in the burnout years and stuff, like I always talk about, it wasn't just work. It was the fact that I was doing everything for everybody else and putting everybody else's needs ahead of me. And this fits into that category because, you know, when somebody, like for instance, you know, the moaning person that always comes into a meeting and it's always, you know, they've always had, there's a school mum that's like this, like I sort of have a joke. The
energy drainer.
Yeah. When I get home, I'm like, well, guess what? So-and-so's mum's 6 things were today in the school playground. But you sort of get to a point, don't you, where you realise it doesn't matter what I do or say, they're always going to have something. Yes. So just let them have a moan.
Yeah.
And also, like, I think it's good for relationships as well, you know, like outside of work or your romantic relationships or whatever. We spend a lot of time trying to change people. And if you just were to accept them for who they are, it just frees up a lot of space in your head that you're not always constantly like trying to change them. So it's about sort of reclaiming all your energy, stopping fighting against the things that you can't change and actually starting to look within. Because a lot of the time, the things that irritate us in other people are because it holds up a mirror or it's against our values or all of those things. But actually spending the time and space worrying about yourself is what matters. So that's where kind of that let me comes in, because I don't want people listening thinking let them is about letting people rolling just trample all over you. So the let me bit is focusing on what is within your control, and it's setting boundaries. It's prioritizing your needs. It's kind of saying, I am as important as you. You know, I'm going to let you do things the way you need to or want to do them. But what I am going to do is come back to you and say, this is what I need.
Yeah. But I also think it's like can be really simple as well, where if you're the kind of person that tries to second guess what other people are thinking, that can be really unhelpful because you may have invented that as well. But it's also, well, if they're going to think that, let them, because what effect is it going to have on me anyway? I just need to concentrate on me and what I'm going to do because it's not going to have an impact.
Yeah. And I think there's something, isn't there, in things like we often talk about comparison and like social media and all of that. Like, and I definitely, I know you don't think I hold back, but I definitely hold back from saying things that I want to say on social media. I've got a lot more to say. And it's because I have this fear of, you know, what are people going to think? What are people going to say? But actually just let them, like, that's, because I let me say what I need to say. And these are the things I'm committing to on it.
Because the people that don't want to hear it can bugger off.
Yeah. They can mute me or if they decide to troll me, I will block them. But it's, you know, it's all the stuff that goes on in our heads, isn't it? But I thought it might be useful for us to just talk about some examples of how you can use it in the workplace. Because I think like, how does this relate to you listening kind of thing? So I mentioned that kind of negative Nancy, the person that always complains, always brings negativity into the room. And the let them bit is quite obvious. You accept that they're like that instead of trying to fix their mindset and like encourage them and this, that and the other. Let them voice their opinion, say what they want to say, but don't like take on that baggage. And there's particular people I can think of in my career with people that have been in my teams that have been like this, and you sort of feel like, well, I'm their boss, so I've got to fix it all for them, but you actually don't. And it's remembering that as adults, and this is where it's really important that it's as adults and not doing this with your children, is that they are responsible for their emotions and you are responsible for your emotions. And actually it's not helpful if you are constantly trying to mold and shape so that you're helping another person with their emotions, because and
I think it can feed them as well sometimes if you're
exactly
so it just makes it worse.
I think particularly with those negative people, every time you try and come back with a positive, it's like they want to balance it out with another negative. So you're just like, yeah, you're right, life is really shit, isn't it? Like, but you'll let me like flip on that, is you let me stay focused and maintain my positivity. Like, I'm going to let you be as miserable as you want to be, but I'm going to maintain my positivity. I'm not going to get dragged into it. Let me like steer the conversation back to solutions. Or when we always get people that they're like and but and actually I'm just going to say, well, what ideas do you have? Or steer the conversation in a way that isn't getting dragged down into that kind of thing.
Because that can quieten them when they run out of fuel.
But also it's let me not spend as much time with this person. Let me surround myself with other people, colleagues. And I think this actually, like in your groups of friends and stuff like that, this is something I've definitely done. Like, you can be like that, but it's not my energy. It's not what I want to do anymore. So I'm going to do something else. And basically, that's all about balancing out. If you've got somebody that's really negative around you, you can maintain your positivity and the things that you can influence. The next one that I thought was one that was particularly pertinent to those of us that have to project manage in our jobs in the workplace is the chronic deadline misser. So the person who, like a colleague or a supplier, whoever, that repeatedly is missing deadlines. This one is hard because them doing that,
because this does impact. Yeah.
But if you can just, remembering this is about how you feel, not about them, but if by letting them, you acknowledge in your head that their behaviour is a pattern that you can't control. It's within their control. It's not within your control. Instead of trying to micromanage them or like really stressing about it, let them take ownership. Because what I see a lot when there's a chronic deadline misser in the team is people pandering to that person or like circumnavigating in another way. And actually, if they are not performing and doing their job properly, then you're just papering over.
You're enabling.
Yes, enabling.
A lot of this is about enabling, isn't it? Dropping the enabler.
So let them miss the deadlines, but let me be clear about what the boundaries are, what the timelines are, communicate, tell them what the impact is of the missed deadlines. This is when we get a little bit like documenting it all. Let me have if it is something where it's going to impact you massively or whatever, create your contingency plan for when you think they're going to drop the ball. But it just keeps coming back to prioritizing and thinking about the things that are within your control, or if there's an alternative. But really, you really want to just be thinking about what my expectations are. I'm going to clearly state them. I'm going to clearly give you boundaries around this is the consequence if you don't meet this deadline, rather than trying to constantly, get annoyed with them, basically, because it just winds you up. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick breather here to hear from our fantastic sponsors. They help keep the podcast going, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Ensuring food safety and quality is crucial. That's why businesses trust Microsearch Laboratories, part of the IFP Labs Group. UCAS-accredited Microsearch offers microbiological, nutritional and allergen testing for food, drink and water, delivering fast results and expert support. With over 30 years of experience, trusted by leading manufacturers and retailers, and a commitment to sustainability, Microsearch is your partner in product safety. Visit micro-search.co.uk to learn more.
And we're back. Thanks for sticking with us. Let's dive right back in. And then I had one more that I thought might be quite useful to talk about, which is the micromanager boss. Have you ever had a boss that was a micromanager? Oh, I've thought of one that you did. Say it out loud.
What? You want me to say it out loud?
No, I don't want you to say it out loud.
I don't think I mean, I've worked for myself for
you micromanage
a long
yourself
time now. Definitely micromanage myself. And I'm not sure I would have been as conscious of it in my early career.
Yeah, because actually you don't mind early in your career because you kind of want high level support, don't you? But as you go on your career, it can be really frustrating. I mean, I had one that it was really annoying, and her background
can't imagine
was
anyone managing you. I mean, what were they thinking? Hello, read the room.
I mean, and this is, I can't imagine ever going back into employment. I'm not saying never, but it's, because I don't like it.
A fear of
and you don't get the best out of me if you micromanage me because, I've got a creative brain and all of that. But if you've got a micromanager that's like constantly wanting to check up on your work and stuff like that, it can really grind you down. So the let them theory on that is that remembering that you just need to let them manage how they need to. It is not a reflection of you. It's not because you're not doing a good job. It's because it's what they need. It's basically their shit, not your shit. So actually, if you focus on delivering the work at the right level and the quality and try not to get frustrated by their style. However, the let me on it is really about being really clear on boundary setting. So this micromanager this is the same one that used to text me at stupid o'clock or send me emails in the middle of the night. And I put boundaries in of just not responding to those things. Let me build their trust over time. Let me find ways of, I think with a micromanager, and we've done an episode, haven't we, on the difficult bosses. Go back and listen to that if you're really thinking about if you've got a micromanager. Because sometimes what you can do in that situation is update them regularly so that they feel like they're involved, but also let me find ways that I can work on my own to sort of balance that for myself. So they're the things that are within your control. You can't change the way they are. You can give them feedback, but they will probably still be that micromanager. But what are the things that you need and what are missing for you? And they're the let me. And effectively, for that, it's just about helping you save your own mental energy, and you will build trust through getting better results. But I think the let them and then let me recognise that it doesn't mean that I'm doing something wrong is a really helpful one on that.
And I think this is what is really useful about this technique, because it's something easy to say and remind yourself of, and it is a way of kind of rising above something that's hard. So it's not kind of saying this is easy to do, because it's really not. And something like this is really difficult because it can impact your how you feel at work so much. Yeah. But this gives you a little bit of structure to kind of think, okay, well, if I'm going to say let me, what does that mean? And what does that look like? And it just, I think it just gives you that little bit of empowerment that sometimes you need if you're in that situation that feels really difficult.
Yeah. And I think it's important to say as well, and in the book, she sort of does let me. It's really good because it's like chapter by chapter. It's got stuff about, in relationships and friendships. There's a really good chapter on friendships and how it can be really hard as an adult to make new friends and stuff like that, and how the let them theories helped her to make more friends and stuff. So I definitely recommend the book to anybody listening. But she moves on to talking about, it's not just about this let me. You can't just say, we talk all the time about influencing others because we do want people to change, but you've got to let go of the need for them to change.
You've got to know where the lines are, haven't you?
Yeah, because the reality is people will only change when they want to change. You can't make them change, but you can create better conditions to enable that change a little bit more. And I think this one is one that I've really learned over the last couple of years, is actually modelling behaviours. So doing the thing that you're wanting them to do yourself, it can create that ripple effect. And it can help people see there's a different approach. And I think one of the examples she had was if you want, I think it was something like a partner that was, had heart problems and was seriously overweight and wasn't doing the exercise and this, that and the other and kept being told, kept nagging them, they weren't ready to change. They weren't going to do it. Okay, let them sit on the sofa and do nothing. But you start going regularly for walks and start eating healthily and this, that and the other. And then you're modelling that behaviour and the other person's like,
really
actually I could do that.
And I see that with me and Sam. Like, we go through cycles, and like when he's like in his like binge eating everything and bringing stuff home, we'll both, and then he'll suddenly be like, right, I'm going to like lose some weight. And then it's inspiring because it's contagious.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing you can do with influencing people is like getting curious. And we talk about this quite a lot, don't we? Like getting a better connection. So think about the micromanager, like get underneath the surface. What is going on for that person? Why do they feel need to do that? And if you can create a better connection with them and actually start listening to them and understanding what their insecurities are, you may be able to influence them better. Oh, another one that's really good, when people are always late for meetings, there's certain businesses, and I can tell, when I'm working with loads of different businesses, you can just tell, like right from when I'm doing a discovery call, if they turn up on time or not, what the culture of that business is. But if obviously you wouldn't do this on a one-to-one Teams call, but when I go in and do training and stuff, I start on, be really clear with people. This is when the break ends. And if people don't come back in the time for the break has ended, you start without them. And that's that modelling behaviour. You're not always, because you kind of like, they're going to be late. Let them be late. Let me start on time. And actually that can really help influence people. But remembering that influencing is more of a long game than the short game. So I thought it might be useful to think of some of the tips that were in the book. Well, definitely tip number 1 is go and read the book. Or listen to the book or listen to her podcast. She's got like specific ones about this. I mean, there's a whole movement about let them now. People have got it tattooed on their body. Mel Robbins has got it tattooed on her body. So it's definitely like a big thing. But I think I've got 3 tips. One is practice to pause in that moment when somebody's really annoying you, when they're frustrating you. Think about that. What's within my control in this situation? Let them own their behaviour and focus on what you're going to do in response, because that's the only thing you've actually got control about. And then another one is to go away from this podcast and think about what is one situation where you're doing too much, you're overextended, in your heart of hearts, like the other person isn't pulling their weight enough, or whatever the thing is, the thing that's annoying you at the moment, and set that boundary and say, I'm going to let them do this, but I'm going to do, what's within my control. And then the other one is around maybe doing some journaling. So when you do have one of those challenging interactions where you come away and you're like, you feel that emotion in your body, don't you? You're like, oh God, that's really got to me. Just write a journal about it. Reflect on what it is that you need to let go of in that and what you've learned about what matters to you versus what matters to them, and just let them and let you go down your path. So that's a let them theory. So how are you going to use the let them theory? Are you already using it?
I am using it all the time. And I think I'm using it just before we started recording. I just started to talk to Amy, and I was going to tell you just a silly little one where I used it, which is like, because I often worry about what other people are going to think about me in a public, people that I don't even know. It drives my husband mad. So I used it the other day. I was on the tube, and when you get on a tube and it's really busy, this is going to sound ridiculous. I had a small suitcase, and I was only going one stop because it was raining outside. And so I got myself into position, and then I realised that I was going to have to walk past those people again, only at the next stop with my suitcase. And I was like, oh, this is really like, what are they going to think of me? This is
as if anybody's going to notice you.
I know this is totally me. But I found that let me thing really useful because it was just a little check for myself. Let them. It's not going to have any impact.
Yeah, what is the actual impact?
Yeah, what is the impact? Yeah. So that's a silly little example.
No, but it isn't. I don't think that is silly. And this is the thing. It's in those little moments where we beat ourselves up all the day. Yes,
exactly. And I waste a lot of energy on worrying about stuff like that. But then in like a more work environment, a similar type of thing, I'll be second guessing what someone is going to think of this piece of work that I'm delivering. And then I use the let them. Let me do my best.
Yeah.
Do what I'm good at. deliver it to the best of my ability, that's on me.
Yeah.
And so I just find it really empowering. And I love the fact that it's let me,
It's so simple. And I think it encompasses so much that we talk about in terms of
it really does
dealing with those.
I think I might
people.
get a tattoo. That's it's
I mean, I've considered it. I'm not sure I'm ever going to get a tattoo, but if I was going to, it'd be let them.
Brilliant. I think people are going to find this really useful.
I hope so.
Let us know on LinkedIn. I'm feeling really buzzed this week because I've had some really lovely feedback about the podcast with people that I've been working with recently who I didn't recommend the podcast in, but they found the podcast and were like, oh, I'm going to listen to it, and have really, really loved it. So I'm feeling really buzzed.
And I'm finding there's more people discovering it. So if you're listening, please do, if you think this episode really resonates with you, or any of the episodes, do share it with your friends and colleagues and stuff, because, we want to keep this podcast going, for as long as you want to listen to it. Yeah. And it really helps us if we get more reach. And
it's very motivating for us.
Well, it's not just about our egos. It's about, who we can get on as guests and all of that sort of stuff.
And we want to do it for all the reasons that we started it, to make an impact in the food industry. But it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to know that people are getting something out of it.
Yeah. So when we say come and let us know, we mean it.
We really do.
We really do love hearing from you, because, you are the community that we do this for, and we love hearing from you. So get in touch and rate and review.
Yes, please.
All right. And we will see you next time.
See you next time. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it, rate and review us. It really helps us reach more food industry pros like you.
For more resources, head over to our website, overfoodsake.co.uk, and join our mailing list to stay in touch.
And if you'd like to connect with us, come say hello on LinkedIn. We're both there, Lucy Wager and Amy Wilkinson.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.